Now, since we officially have a new House Speaker, Congress has been working hard to come up with some sort of support for Israel, despite the Hamas supporting squad in the House. And I've already told you how much I love the new speaker. The more I learn about him, the more that I like him. But listen to this. They proposed $14.3 billion in aid for Israel. And personally, the governmental spending and blind financial support for the likes of Ukraine has rubbed a lot of Americans like myself the wrong way. So the last thing most of us want is more and more spending to further decimate the American economy. But if we're going to support anybody in a situation like this monetarily, I would sign up to support Israel. Well, somehow they've figured out a brilliant way to do this by taking the funding from the IRS.
And it may start with this Israel bill. I mean, I know the text just dropped. Sahil, what are we learning about what's in the Israel bill and the challenge it will put Democrats and some of his Republican friends on the Senate side in when they bring this to the floor?
So a couple of notable things about this Israel aid bill. The first is, as you just pointed out, he's doing it as a standalone Israel aid bill, breaking off from the other elements of the administration's sweeping funding request. There won't be Ukraine aid as part of this. There won't be other measures involving, containing China and border security. That's all for another day. The most notable thing about this bill is that Johnson is funding the $14.3 billion in aid to Israel with cuts to the Inflation Reduction Act, which is President Biden's signature legislative achievement over his first 2 years, specifically cuts to IRS enforcement that the administration says it'll use to beef up, tax collection against wealthy tax cheats. That is not going to fly in the Democratic Senate if it does pass the House. That is not something that Joe Biden is going to sign into law. And you already have Democrats blasting newly minted Speaker Johnson for politicizing a bipartisan cause.
So what will the Democrat support be, if any at all? Well, the bill passed in the House. It was vetoed by Joseph Robinette Biden, otherwise known as Robert L. Peters, aka the president. So what will happen now? Well, Daniel Chaitin reports 12 House Democrats joined with Republicans on Thursday to pass a White House-opposed plan to offset $14.3 billion in aid for Israel by slashing the same amount of funds meant for the Internal Revenue Service. The GOP measure to provide emergency aid to Israel as it fights Hamas passed by a 226 to 196 vote, sending the legislation to the Democrat-led Senate, where Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already vowed not to bring it up for consideration. Now, this is the challenge. Bills can ultimately get their stamp of approval once they reach the Senate floor, but this is where Democrats are still in charge, unlike the Republican House. The question is, will Democrats in the Senate show the same support as the Dems in the House did? Well, this is what Schumer said. Schumer announced earlier in the day the Senate would, quote, work on our own bipartisan emergency aid package that includes funding for aid to Israel, Ukraine, humanitarian aid, including for Gaza, and competition with the Chinese government. So he's proposing exactly what the president wants, a bloated bill to create lots of money to spend on lots of stuff. But the American people don't want that. That's why McCarthy is not the speaker anymore. That's why Mike Johnson is the speaker now. We are tired of you spending ridiculous amounts of our money that we work so hard for while you just show up to spend it. The article lists all 12 Democrats who showed their support. Representatives Angie Craig from Minnesota, Don Davis from North Carolina, Lois Frankel from Florida, Jared Golden from Maine, Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey, Greg Landsman from Ohio, Jared Moskowitz from Florida, Darren Soto from Florida, Haley Stevens from Michigan, Juan Vargas from California, Debbie Wasserman Schultz from Florida, and Frederica Wilson from Florida. I don't find myself commending Democrats very often, but way to go, guys and gals. One of those names was Lois Frankel from Florida. Here's what she had to say on the issue. The United States has a moral duty and national security urgency to aid Israel in defending herself. Make no mistake, Hamas terrorists and others in the region are out to destroy Israel and kill all Jews. We must send an unequivocal message to the world that we stand with Israel. Now listen to me carefully. The House Republicans and these 12 Democrats are not saying they don't want to continue funding for Ukraine against Russia or against China or for humanitarian aid for Gazans or whatever else. They're committed to making bills singular issues. In this instance, this is our new speaker saying, here is a bill on Israel. The president is the one who wanted this exact amount for Israel. The exact amount, $14.3 billion. Let's vote on that. We'll separately vote on everything else later. But this gives the people's representatives an opportunity to make focused decisions, not to mention a safeguard against so much corruption. Speaker Johnson would go on to say, we are in dire straits as a nation. We want to protect and help and assist our friend Israel, but we have to keep our own house in order as well. We're going to do this in a responsible manner. So, if you're in one of the several states that are represented by one of the 48 Democrats or 3 independents, call their offices and tell them to pass this single legislation for supporting Israel. Getting quality, good-priced meat products is proving to be increasingly difficult these days. With Bidenflation, the prices of everything in the store is going through the roof. When you make fuel more expensive, that costs the farmer more, it costs the shipper more, it costs the grocer more, and it costs you more. That's why you need to check out Good Ranchers. They'll ship directly to your house. They're 100% American beef, chicken, seafood, and pork, all sourced from independent farmers in the U.S. So check the link in my show notes and use the code RANCHER10, RANCHER10, for 10% off their best-selling Ranchers Classic Box.